the old concept of the Chassidish patch. You heard about a Chassidish patch?
Tell us about it. I don't know
I got
anything.
Chassidish patch all the time when I was in Seagate.
Once upon a time, the Chassidim
Yay!
that are for bringing or something like that, if they had a little bit of matchki or something, they would give quite hefty patches to their dearest friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know the story about Rabbi Shmuel, not Shmuel, Benjamin Kletzker, that they wanted to put him up on the table and give him thwacks. In the end, he got himself out of it. You don't know the story. If I tell you that story, then we're never going to learn it. Quite a long story. So, anyway, I once had a Chassidish patch. Oh, yeah. And Baruch Hashem, I remember it affectionately to this day. Once I was sitting by for bringing in Melbourne, Australia, and I was, quite new to the Hasidic customs. I didn't sort of know all the different customs. I was sitting in a Fabringham, and all of a sudden I understood enough Yiddish to know that somebody insulted what I thought my mashpia. Somebody said something what I didn't think was fitting. So I turned to him and I said, what is this? In English. So he'd already had a little bit, He was a very influential person, but he happened to be big. He happened to have a very hefty arm, He sort of looked at me and he sort of measured me off and he went right up his hand against my head,
Wow.
And if you ever heard, singing noises in your ear, if you get a thwack, or you have a really bad bump or something, then your ears sing.
Yeah.
It's very unusual.
Yeah, she really happens.
But literally my whole head sang, And I was, I was just so thunderstruck that I went quiet. I didn't say anything, I didn't say any more. Actually, I wasn't able to, physically. So afterwards, one of the Chassidim came over to me, and he realized that I must have been a bit sort of confused by all this. So he explained to me the whole concept of a Chassidish patch. And he said that, Be'ez Hashem will help you, that it will only be good for you in future years.
It says in Masechta Marcus, it's a mitzvah for a Rav that his Talmud, even when his Talmud is learning strong. So keep learning.
Very good. Good for you, boy. But however, I can't go into it all now, but in latter years, I remembered that patch very important.
Yeah.
Anyway, it does whatever. So we see from that, as somebody who loves you, it's much better if he beats you up than somebody who hates you, he kisses you. You follow? So it brings there, the Gemara Masechta Tainas, Daf Kof Amadolu, but there's a whole Gemara there, but it brings that Achia HaShaloni, he cursed the Jewish people. Yeah, he really said something very sharp. The Gemara says, well, that's much better what Eri Kolim's Achia Shaloni cursed him. That is much, much better than all the brachas that Bilam gave.
Whoa.
Even though Bilam gave brachas, he didn't really mean it. He was just forced by Hashem to say the brachas. But he didn't really mean that. Of Achia Shaloni, when he cursed them, he meant for their good. Yeah? So what is so good over there? So the Gemara said there's a pasuk, Achia Shaloni, says Hashem is going to beat you guys. He's talking to Yidden. Hashem is going to beat you guys like a koner. How do you call it? A koner means like a bamboo sort of bush, a willow tree that leans over near the water, and he's going to beat you like a koner. So the Gemara says, what's so wonderful about that? So the Gemara says a koner bends on all sides. It goes over here and it goes there. If it gets a thwack, it sort of goes with the thwack. Yeah? And if you push it this way, it'll go that way. And if you push it down into the water, it'll go down into the water. But everything comes back again to where it is. Because that's what a koner is. He's got very deep roots. And he's used to moving around in the winds and there's on the water. And Mel said to Gemara, that's an amazing bracha. That means that whatever will happen, Yidden will come back to where they were, and everything will be fine, and the roots are there. And that's the curse of Achia Hashalim. And then it says, and it goes into a few brachas that Bilam gave, and it shows that they really weren't brachas at all, without going into all the detail. So it comes along the Saporno, and he learns that Gemara in a most amazing way. He says that Achia Shaloini Kilal es Yisrael Bekona Hanikna L'chol Haruchais. He said a willow tree or a bamboo thing, it goes in all different sizes and always seems to be bowing down. It seems to be moving around, but in the end, everything's good. So he says, well, that's what Yaakov Avinu did with Esau. That he sort of bent here and he bent there and he bent down and everything. Oh, but really what he meant was that ultimately he's the boss. But he said, in order to prove that you're the boss, sometimes you have to give in to Esau. That's what he said. You have to sort of bow down, you have to move around a bit, smear him. And then it could be that he's going to have good moments. Yeah, if he does have good moments, then it's good. I've often suggested that we should have a big samovar in these classes with hot coffee. You know what a samovar is? You don't know what a samovar is? Oh, you're a person. In Russia, they used to have these big things, always with hot coffee. They were big coffee drinkers. Yeah, and they used to have a samovar. Never heard of a samovar? No. I almost thought of being pretty big button, but I've heard of a samovar. Anyway, whatever, so Adi Kolims, the Saporno, he says, and he brings a very amazing proof that he's right. And he said, this is what Achia Hashalim. He said, when the Romans, not Titus, but the first one, they were sitting on Jerusalem, there were two groups. There was a whole group of extremists, but the Gemara calls them Biryoni. And they wanted to go out and leave Jerusalem and slug with the Romans, whatever would happen. How does the old saying have it? To die, posh and sensationally, we're going to go out and we're going to fight them. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he said no. He said we've got to go out and we've got to talk with the Romans and find a way to get good with them. You follow? And that's what he did. He acted as if he was dead. You know the whole story? Yeah, and they covered him with a thing because they said he's dead. So they took him outside the wall so the Romans didn't say anything. And in the meantime, they switched direction and they went in the direction of the general. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai met the general. And he spoke with him. But it was already too late. He said to him, you don't know the famous story. He said to him, if I'm a king, then why didn't you come before? Why did you leave it so late? Well, you guys are really better on him.
No, it says he referred to him as a king.
What's the story? You ever noticed in the Chabad Siddur, in the Chabad Machzor, right before Hamelech, you know where it's written Hamelech in big, in the Machzor? Look, before that,
the story from the Rabbi.
You see a couple of lines there. And that's not written, the Alter Rebbe didn't put that in. How it got into the Machzor, nobody quite knows. Because it's not about the Alter Rebbe, it's about Rabbi Kalina. It's a word from Rabbi Kalina, but it's very powerful. And he said that you have to be Mizboinan.
It was false.
That if the Abish is a melech, then the Abish is saying to you, if I'm a melech, then why didn't you come to me earlier?
Yeah.
You guys, I don't know what I'm going to do with you guys. I want to sort of stir you all up or something. I never seem to get anywhere. When you say Hamelech, you're supposed to think, if the Abish is a melech, why didn't I come to him before? That's what this general said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Very powerful. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said he came in. Oh, in the meantime, the Biryoni, they started making trouble. And because they started making trouble, then the Romans conquered Rachmanin. Amir says it's upon it because of these Biryone Nisraf Beis HaMikdash. Rachmanin is a sign that you have to bow down to the Esau. That's what Rabbi, he didn't bow down, but he went out to him. And he said, Shalom Alok Malko. And that's when he said to him, Melech ani, lama lo bata mikodem. It's mind-boggling. So, anyway, the Sapono learns from that you got to sort of kowtow to Esau. When Moshiach will come, and the base of Midrash will be rebuilt, then it'll be something different. But in the meantime, that's the Seder. Yeah? How do we know? So, this takes us, we're soon coming to the pitch line. So this takes us down to another issue, but it's the same basic issue, and that occurs at the beginning of the parsha. Right at the beginning of the parsha, can you hear me, Levi?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All of a sudden I feel my voice is dropping, I don't know. I have a problem with my voice. Anyway, maybe I'll just take a little bit of water here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher hakol niyo b'dvorei.
Hey.
See, I almost said by a prayer coffee. It's a sign that it's good water.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the beginning, Yaakov sends these angels. And he says, Koi toimru ladini le'Esau. You have to say to my master, Esau. And if you look in the whole passage, there's about another 7 times that he calls Esau Adoni, my master. So there's a question, what's going on around here? What's he doing calling Ad Kedei Kach? And he says, Abdecho, I'm your slave or your servant, several times. So, comes along the Midrash, and there's like 2 nuances also when I get to this. Comes along the Midrash, and the Midrash tells about Rabbi. Earlier, and the Midrash tells about Kohen, so you have to be careful, not to be pogea b'kovet.
Sure.
Yeah. So Rabbi Yehuda Nossi had a very close friend. Do you remember who that was? I mean, he had a lot of close friends, but a very famous one. Somebody called Antoninus. Ever heard of Antoninus?
The Roman.
He later became the Caesar in Rome. But he was very close. And he even wanted to be Mizgaya because of his Kesher with Rabbi and everything.
Wow.
But later on, he became like the Caesar, he called the Caesar. He became the. So it's written that once he's sitting, Rabbi, in the Midrash, at the beginning of the passage, it brings that he's sitting with a Talmud of his, a very close Talmud of his called Rabbi Ephes, or Office. Very interesting name, Ephes. Ephes means absolute not garnished. But it's very interesting. This fellow, Rabbi Ephes, is mentioned that he was a big figure later when, after Rabbi's Istalkas, and he could have taken over the whole leadership of being the Nazi, but he didn't. It's very interesting. Amazing story about him. Anyway, he's sitting with Rabbi. All of a sudden, Rabbi says, please write a letter in my name to Antonina. Because he was like very bottled to Rabbi, so he asked him to write a letter. So write a letter to Antonina. So Rabbi said, okay. So he said, first of all, write the title, and then you'll tell me what you want to say. So he writes the title, and he writes it, Yehuda Nasiya, what that means, Rabbi, is approaching Maran. Maran means a leader, king, Maran, Antonina's Malka. You follow?
Yep.
So Rabbi says to him, show me what you've written. So he shows him, and he says, no, that's not good, and it's written that Rabbi teared it up.
Wow.
So he says, I'm telling you now what you have to write. You have to write that this is Yehuda Nasiya, Avdecho, your servant, is approaching you, Antoninus Malka. He said you have to put in the word Avdecho. So it's written, Rabbi Efer says to him, Rabbeinu, he said, Eicha tamu vazeh et kvoidecho. I said, I'm getting like, there's a story in the Gemara in the sector Beitza, you know the story. Rabbi Eliezer, he used to hold, you have to learn the whole Yontif. Yontif. So he used to start teaching. And then one by one, all the Talmudim, they didn't want to paskin that way. They want to go home to the family, they want to eat a meal or something. He held you to learn. So it was written one by one, they would get up and leave the class. And in the end, Rabbi Eliezer would be left. He said, he would be teaching away there's no people, you know. That's what's happening to me. I started off, this one's walked out, this one's walked out, he's walked out. Little by little, they're all walking out. At least Baruch Hashem, you laughed at that joke. So what does Rabbi say? That you've got to put in Avdecho. So Rabbi Ofer says to him, Rabbeinu, Eicha tamu vazeh et kvoidecha. So Rabbi says, Toiv ono, misabi Yaakov. Am I any better than my grandfather Yaakov? He said, what did my grandfather Yaakov, he called himself Avda, and he called Esav Adonai. You follow?
Yeah.
So he said, am I any better than him? So then he said, he realizes that, Rabbi Evers was not convinced by this, so Yaakov maybe shouldn't have done it, you know what I mean? So then Rabbi says, but look, he says to him, Im Lovan Gauti. Now who's Lovan? So the Medrash says that Lovan is the balabas of all the Ramayim. He's the chief king of all the deceivers in the world. In other words, you haven't got anybody harder than Lovan. You follow? Yeah. So Rabbi writes over there. Rabbi says to him, "And what happened? Who won? Who beat who? Yaakov Avinu beat Lovan. Is a simon that Yaakov Avinu, he even though he was like a sort of an ever to what you would call him a Lovan, but he in the end he beat him. Yeah. So he's like when he sent to Esau. It's like he's saying that, I'm your ever and everything, and you're my master, but look at my previous master and look at what happened. In other words, the fact that I'm calling you Eved is only out of Derech Eretz, and so it comes on the Ramban, and the Ramban says that your big brother, I don't know if any of you guys got you're a big brother. A big brother, you have to give him cover like you give your father.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's kabed es avicho ve'esi melcho, but the word es is always kolel mashu extra. So the Gemara says in Kiddushin, the Rabbi is ochiv hagodel. So the Ramban says that he really meant with the word to give COVID to Esau. And he said, by giving COVID, that would make him stop, and think for a moment, and maybe he might calm down. But in Emerson, what he was hinting to Esau is that, I've been by Lovan, and you know that, and you know who beat who. So you will know that what I'm calling you, Avdecha, you'll know that, I'm pretty tough stuff. Even though I'm calling you I'm calling you my master, and I'm your Eved, but you know what sort of koyches I've got. Ayidachim came, why are you doing it, Bechlal? So that's what the answer is by the Meforshim. They said that's what he meant to hint to here to Esau, that careful of me, I'm your Eved, but I'm only calling you Eved out of Derech Eretz, which is anyway Al Pi Torah. But I'm not really sort of bound down to you. So what do we have here? We have two opinions. Rabbi Efes, he said, Atama Vazer Tatzmacha Rabbeinu. You can't do this, And Rabbi says to him, it looks as if I am, but I'm not really. So it comes along, we got here the Das Zakenium from the Balei HaTeisves. I said the Balei HaTeisves, they are big people. The Balei HaTeisves are the Balei HaTeisves from the Gemara. And they wrote Pirushim also on the Torah. And this Das Zakenium, he was a great person. He got together many of their Pirushim, and he brings what they say on the Torah. So it comes on the Das Zakenium from the Balei HaTeisves, and he says that it was very unfortunate, over here by Avdechor, he says, very unfortunate that Yaakov Avinu did that. I'm sorry, Yaakov Avinu did that. It was very unfortunate. He said that Rabbi Efes had got a point. He said that you're not allowed to even appear to give too much COVID to Esau. And he says later, this whole Ishtachavoyes business, also not good. And he said that's why at the end of this week's Parsha, you got all these kings, that the Gemara says there were 8 kings or 7 kings, but by the way, that's got to do with Toihu. There were 7 kings in Edom, Lifnei Maloi, before there was a king by the Eden. And so he says that means that Esau had a very powerful kingdom before Yaakov Avinu even started with a kingdom. There's Shoftim and everything, but the kingship only started up much later in Eretz Yisrael. And he said those primordial kings, they gave Esau a lot of hold in the world, a lot of koyach. And he said that all came because Yaakov Avinu shouldn't have said to him, Avdecho and Avdini and all these things. He shouldn't have said it. So we see that even though the Medrash says that Rabbi gave a good reason why he did it, the Balei HaTeisves and other great people, they agree with Rabbi Efes that it was a bizoin in the kovod of Rabbi, and he shouldn't have done that. And by giving Esau a lot of kovod, he made him powerful in such a way that he got a hold in the world, a kingship which is in some way stronger than the kingship of Yid. Up to you. So we see that in Lafisa, don't we? Yeah, we see that there are like 2 nuances in the whole thing. Rashi and the Saporno, and it would appear a little bit, the Medrash and so on, they all hold that it was okay. Not only okay, but it was very necessary that Yaakov Avinu bow down and he do the whole thing, give himself over in such a way, and that's what caused that Esau had a good moment. And every now and then you can cover him at a good moment, even though for sure he hates. That's basically their shitta. And the Balei HaTeisves, they even get a bit sharp, and they say that because Yaakov Avinu did it, therefore we're like suffering from that over the generations, that we've given Esau power into the world.
Wow.
Well, I don't know what's going on with these Talmudim around here today, but this is what they call
it's warm in here.
Either a stand-up or a walkout. Even Miller, that's basically the picture up to here. So, And the other Mephoshim, but they all go basically with the same lineage. And the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, he says also that when Esau saw all the bowing down, he saw all the then he became good. But it's much more that he also learned that because of all the bowing down, that had a good effect. So that's a picture up to here. Now comes along the Zohar Kodesh. It's written in the Zohar Kodesh, a very amazing thing. And the Zohar Kodesh says like this. It starts off with the kasha, even stronger than everybody else. And the Zohar Kodesh says, how could Yaakov Avinu possibly bow down to Esau? How could he even do it? And he says, for Buja, he said, because Esau is a shaila from Emes Avodah Zarah.
Yeah, shaila?
Yeah, if you bow down to a human being, then that's a problem, but it's not really mamish Avodah Zarah according to most. But if this human being is really bad news, then your bowing down to him is like you're bowing to a Keil Acher, to another divinity. So was it a pshat? So the Zohar Kodesh says that Esau is the embodiment of the Yetzer Hara. Yeah.
So they bow down
and the Rebbe Melech Moshiach says on many occasions that the Yetzer Hara is called a Kel Zor. He's a strange God in your midst. Which means that to a certain extent, if we give in to our Yetzer Hara, Chas v'Shalom, it's like giving in to idolatry. It's like, and the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Mamish Bull, if I'm Lefizeh, it comes out that Esau, being as he is the embodiment of the Yetzer Hara, if you bow down to him, it's like Mamish Avodah Zarah. So the Zohar Kodesh is very sharp. And says, how could in Smarig, with the cuts of several lines, how come Yaakov Avinu bowed down to Esau? And not only he bowed down, but 7 times, That's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
Even though people give a reason, there's a posik, Sheva, Yipel, Tzaddik, Bakom, that a Tzaddik falls 7 times, but he gets up, 7 times is pretty heavy going. So, says the Zohar Kodesh, Elamai, it never happened. Didn't happen.
What about pshat?
It never happened because, says the Zohar Kodesh, you have to learn a different pshat. Who over lifneihem? In other words, who went in front of?
Who?
Who went in front of who?
Right.
Yeah.
So Rashi says that Yaakov Avinu walked in front of the family, right? And he did that in order that he should get the trouble and not his family. The Zohar Kodesh says no. Who over Alehem is referring to the Eivishter. That the Eivishter walked between Yaakov Avinu and his family and Esau. So Yaakov Avinu all of a sudden sees the Shekhinah. He sees a tremendous gilui of the Shekhinah. This is written in the Zohar. So what do you do if you see a tremendous gilui of the Shekhinah?
You bow down.
Oh, you bow down.
But did Yaakov not know that he's going to be looking like he's bowing down to his brother?
1 second. So, Yaakov Avinu, he sees the Shekhinah. Gilui of Shekhinah. So Yaakov Avinu bowed down 7 times to the Shekhinah. And each time, he sort of moved a little bit further because, he was all tremendously mitlahev from the Shekhinah. It just so happens that this whole Russia, this old KLALI, he sees all this happening. So he thought, he thought that Yaakov Avinu was bowing down. הוא חשב ככה. Aber the Emma says, nicht so. So therefore he runs up and he does, you know. And then he learned a new shot that he kissed him, and that's what Rabbi Shimon said.
Yeah.
But Rabbi Shimon's the Baal of the Pnimis HaTorah. And he said then he could kiss him,